Well, great to see you here at Mobile World Congress, Leonard.
Hi, how's it going?
Very good.
Yeah.
How was your show so far?
Exhausting. I think that's the only word you can use to describe the fourth day.
Yeah.
When you reach the fourth day of MWC.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have to be honest. I'm a bit more introvert, but I think it's really energizing.
It is.
Really
It is.
people.
It is.
Seeing everything at live, real. I'm quite excited.
I have to agree with you, and there's just so much for analysts to absorb. When we come here, we're roaming the halls, we're having briefings and meeting people. And I think one of the highlights this year definitely is the interactions that I've had with Ericsson and, some of the observations that I've made in terms of key trends that we're seeing in the industry. And it's just a lot to absorb, and it's great to have an opportunity to kind of recap things a little bit. Yeah, maybe
Let's go through.
maybe I need a little bit of time to synthesize stuff in my brain here, but let's have a chat.
It's good. I thought maybe we was just talking about what's becoming real now. Like last year, we talked about proof of concepts. You showed, for example, like video broadcasting, more devices coming online. Now it seems like it's coming real, right? Now we see cameras actually using it. What do you think?
I think it's really you can only regard it as a positive thing, right? And especially as operators, especially pioneering operators, start to make that transition to 5G SE. I think they're really discovering,
Finally,
wow, we have all this technology that's backlogged, right, behind this 5G SA wall. And as you start to transition to the other side, there's all these possibilities, especially as you start to broaden your deployment, and then you start to capitalize on the densification of the network that you've implemented in the run up to your transition. So, I think we're starting to see the potential, and that's the interesting thing is we're kind of in a early days of realizing a broader realization of the benefits of 5G.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen, of course, in the past, like pixel access was already there.
Yeah.
Pretty good use case, super successful.
Yeah.
Very good money for operators. We see in the back actually here on the camera is all the enterprise work that seems to be going from POCs to production as well, right?
Yeah.
You see manufacturing, ports, all that stuff coming alive. That's good. And I agree. That's probably the next thing that will happen. Like, how do we do real differentiated services, differentiated connectivity? We'll do quite a few examples here.
Yeah. And, I think the possibilities are even broader and I think deeper. And have a potential to be more transformative, especially as we start to see, more of the 5G features start to exhibit themselves through not only the network, but also in the applications and use cases, right? So, that's something that I'm always keeping an eye out for. And it is good to see the adoption and the traction that's being made. But I will have to say there's a lot more to be done, right? I mean, again, how do we trigger that transition to 5G SA? And, I'll keep saying it over and over again. We need to figure out how to get operators to realize that benefit. And, what I think is very positive this year is there seems to be a realization of the need to do that, right? Especially in the context of, competitiveness, right? National or regional competitiveness. So,
I agree. I mean, adding to that, like, what really needs to happen now to make this real? I think you mentioned 5G SA, kind of that's kind of the baseline. Everybody has to have. Then we're building on top of it. You probably see in programmable networks. So how do you actually make the network programmable in the sense of it can actually be one network, differentiated services? We may want to look at autonomous networks. So that's gonna key enabler. And then, like, how do you bring it to developers? Like you mentioned, like, how do you build an ecosystem around it? And maybe we can look at the Aduna demo and the area to see, like, how does it really work? What do you think?
Let's do it.
Should we move over?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
So I thought we have a look at how it really works with Aduna here. Look, we here, like we're basically getting in here when you go to Ericsson, Aduna stage. So everybody's passing here.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the good thing.
Yeah.
Do you see our new partnerships that we have? When you want to have a look at our, what we call Hall of Fame here.
Oh, is this the Hall of Fame?
That's the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Wow.
So you see we have now, on the operator side, KDDI also joined.
Right.
Recently, EAND also joined very recently. And on the platform side, we had Infobip joining. We had Cinch joining just recently.
Yeah.
And we have a deal now, or partnership now with the Bridge Alliance. So the ecosystem seems to come together here.
Yeah.
So we're getting really good momentum, really good tailwind to really make it happen.
Yes. So why does this matter?
Why does it matter?
Yeah.
I think if a developer really wants to get into like a function, let's say a fraud prevention, they want to have a global application. And, and how do you do this? You can only do it if you have like all operators or lots of operators joining and really global coverage. And otherwise it's going to be difficult for developers to use it. And also I think we should be at the developer platform with the developers and not build some things separate. I think the developer should be there where he always is, programming, and just get used to it.
Yeah. And I think obviously I've written quite a bit about network APIs for quite some time. Right?
Like your framework is a very good end-to-end framework.
I think it was sort of necessary because I think, especially what you guys are doing with Aduna tends to be a little bit different. And this year at MWC, I think I've gotten some confirmation that there was a need to clarify exactly what the role of Aduna is and what it is that the JV is really trying to do, right? And I've seen that as like a progression. You know, network APIs have been a thing forever, right? And it's not like you guys decided one day, hey, let's do network APIs and establish an exchange. And I call it an exchange like Aduna. Right. This is a progression. There's been a significant effort to create a standard set of API definitions. Right.
I agree.
So that developers can access exposed network capabilities. And now we're in a place where, exactly to your point, where we're looking at a future where what you guys call differentiated connectivity is really going to be a thing, right? We've heard of network slicing. We've heard of all these great 5G capabilities. You mentioned the programmable network and how now the infrastructure itself is becoming software defined, increasing the software defined and cloud native. Having these things now fall into place, we're looking at a different scenario where these network APIs can really take a role. And, you know, it's like a continuum, right? It was never like, hey, you flip a switch and then all of a sudden you go from, you know,
no, it's a journey,
right?
It's a long journey.
Yeah. And I think that's something that the industry really needs to be reminded of. Just simply because it's such a long time scale for these things to evolve and then hit inflection points. And I think Aduna comes at a point where it can really catalyze the industry and really take the industry to that place that I think we were talking about 5G being sort of this innovation platform, especially for businesses, right? You know, transcending connectivity, transcending what operators traditionally were providing in terms of capabilities and services. So that's how I view it.
No, I agree. Well, I thought it was also interesting that we're now going really beyond connectivity. And it has been always just basically best effort, right? Now we're getting differentiation to it. But then we're adding also new capabilities like fraud prevention, like location information, Like a lot of different APIs are coming to life that are actually going beyond.
Yeah. No, I like that point because, I've written years ago about the inevitable changing nature or the evolving nature of the what we call the network infrastructure, right? And if you look at the 3GPP roadmap, we have things like integrated sensing. All these new capabilities are related to, quite honestly, IoT that make the infrastructure quite different from what we thought of it before, where, like you're saying, we're just providing best effort connectivity. Now,
It's
all of a sudden,
more and more.
Right.
Yes.
All this data can come off of the network and be leveraged in business applications. And I think, these security related functions and information that can come off the network to support, let's say, authorization, authentication. I think,
stuff, right?
Very, very exciting things. I mean, they sound like pedestrian.
Yeah.
But they're going to become essential, I think.
Yeah. And it's so much easier to do, right? You don't need to type in numbers anymore. It's just.
No, you know what? You got to start off with high value, low hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
As long as it's high value, go with it,
Yeah.
and because the ecosystem needs, it needs to be able to, basically convey that value to the end markets so that the ecosystem grows from the top line up, right? And so, I think.
And then we go differentiation, right? And then I like your comment on the sensing side.
Yeah.
So that I'm also quite excited about. I think the network has completely new capabilities that it sends around, can discover drones, no-flight zones, can discover even parking lots.
Yeah.
For people on tracks or border control, and that's quite exciting new development.
Yeah.
That could be an API.
Exactly. Or collections of APIs. And I think that's one of the mindset shifts that folks need to make. It's just not just individual APIs, but, I've seen actually in the halls of MWC here of Fira, several examples of companies that are actually working on compound applications that tap a number of different network APIs as well as communication APIs and cloud APIs to create. Right. And so, I kind of put it like these network APIs create sort of a infrastructure management or interface, right?
Yeah.
That allows you to then take advantage of the differentiated connectivity capabilities as well as information and do really complex things.
Yeah.
Right? Because each of the network APIs suggests something very simple.
Yeah.
But in the hands of a developer, these network APIs can do some very powerful things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can maybe have a look at what APIs we have. I know that. Do you think that's helpful?
I'm sure it'll be helpful for our audience. Yes. So let's do it.
So here's maybe at least a list, right? What we have right now. So we have location APIs. That's already in store.
Yeah.
We have the authorization fraud APIs already in store. The SIM-swap, number verification. So verify to do, for example, fraud prevention for banks or for retailers.
Mm-hmm.
Also things like KYC match. That's for example what retailers use, so they kind of get information of their customer. Mm-hmm. So even if your customer enters the store, kind of knows what the customer needs, so can actually use that. And then also network insights like SIM count, even in rain for weather conditions or for an insurance company that wants to know this kind of information. So those are already in store, and then of course there's a roadmap behind it to bring this to life.
Yeah. And I think that's a good start, actually.
That's a starting point.
It's a good starting point. And I think it's just a matter of developers understanding, number one, the capabilities are there, the information, the contextual information, augmentation is there. And I think that's exactly what's happening with a lot of the fraud prevention applications, which actually I'm quite a fan of. I think is just a great example of how just information off of the network can create some very important, bring some very important capabilities to businesses in building more robust trust capabilities and applications, right? Services, if you will, that they can then plug up into their their business applications.
Yeah.
So
good. So that now we're like kind of on top of the architecture, right? So how do we build the ecosystem? So you mentioned like we need 5G SA, we need programmable networks for this to make really differentiate it.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have a look at what it really takes for the network.
Let's do it.
So why don't we have a look at what it really takes in the network to make this real?
Yeah.
Growth opportunities, differentiation, but also automation.
Yeah.
How does automation really work?
Yeah.
So we're here at the center of it. So you see AI in RAN. That's essentially building AI embedded into the radio access network.
Yeah.
So that's like mainly energy savings, for example, for predicting workloads and sleeping cells, massive MIMO, like basically going and lowering kind of the energy consumption. It's quite successful already. We have intelligent automation. That's essentially the layer on top of it.
Yeah.
So how do you do orchestration of the operations much more efficient?
Yeah.
And on the other side, we have what we call Ericsson Intelligent Automation Platform. Essentially, it's kind of the SMO, like the service management orchestration, but it's allowing others to build RApps, and of course Ericsson as well, like to build RApps on top of it, and that's really generates a lot of growth right now.
Yeah.
We have about 60 of them applications already. A lot of them are AI based.
Yeah.
1,500 developers. So that's really growing quite fast. And that's a good thing to just talk about the automation ecosystem that we're building around it.
Yeah. Well, so I'm a big fan of SMOs and the Ericsson automation platform. Yeah. And I think it also has another purpose, right? Which is to help operators not only orchestrate, manage, manage the network, right? But because there's like this multi-tech, multi-vendor integration layer on the bottom, it can also serve as a very important, migration tool or middleware, right? That's true. And so as you're looking at transforming the network and making this transition, moving along the modernization path, it can be a really important tool. And I think a lot of operators are starting to realize that, right? Because you're not going to switch over your entire network overnight and your entire, portfolio overnight. And in fact, it could take a long time. And so having a tool like that, a framework like that
helps to do migration.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's in both, right? It says multi-vendor, but also multi-domain, right? This is all on, and then it goes across the network itself.
Yeah. And so, I remember when you guys announced it and I wrote about it, that's exactly what I tuned into. And I thought, hey, you know what? In order to get the ball moving or grease the wheels to what we talked about earlier, the 5G SA transition, this is really, it could be a really important tool. And then it's interesting to see now, years later, everyone's kind of getting excited about it. Yeah. But we're still kind of early. I thought, X apps probably a little too early. R apps, that's probably going to be the starting point, especially if operators start to find value in an SMO type, platform and tool.
And we have two big installations already. So you've seen the AT&T. That's already exactly what's already happening. We have a number of others in Europe, also in Asia, coming to live. Now that's the time where it really gets to scale.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they leverage that tool and that platform in their modernization efforts, right? Yeah. In as much as it's going to help with the automation of the network and progress their capabilities in being able to handle actually the complexity of a 5G network, right? Especially as they make the transition to a standalone.
Yeah. Well, we went quite through a whole lot of things, right? We went 5G SA, we went through programmable networks, went through autonomous automation here, automated networks, the whole ecosystem on top of it. Yeah. So that's kind of how the whole thing comes together. And I'm remembering your framework. I guess that's kind of the full
full stack. Yeah, but you forgot something.
Oh, which one is it?
the topic that everyone was talking about and continues to talk about, which is the monetization piece.
Oh, yeah, right. That's even on top.
Come on, you got to make money out of all these investments, right? ROI. It's all about ROI.
Yeah. And that one is interesting, like how it develops, right? I would like to hear your view as well. Like I can see this going in, like some use cases, like fixed wireless access is obvious, right? It's already making money. Enterprise obvious, so making money is scaling. On the differentiation, I would say we have the enterprise part. I think we're seeing that, like broadcasting, point of sales terminals. I think that's now clear value proposition, clear pricing, monetization of it. On the consumer side, it's probably something that will take a little bit longer. But I think I do see things in the US, like there are some premium offerings that actually got quite well into the market. In China, you have these influencer kind of micro segments that you're addressing, which works quite well. We're in Singapore, so it looks like there's some islands now coming together and really allowing us to also differentiate in the consumer side.
And my view is that as you're modernizing your network, you need to modernize your operations as well, right? That will enable you to modernize your business and afford you the flexibility to basically not only deliver the services, but ultimately you have to be able to traverse the entire stack, right? So you have the infrastructure, composable, programmable infrastructure that translates into services, right? Network services that can be both informational and connectivity related. And then you have to now interface with your customers or the enterprise. And that's where you need to have that modernized operations, right? And this is, again, something that I wrote about and emphasized 2 years ago. It's really good to see that there's like a focus on that now, you know. So OSS, BSS, CPQ, I think is really important. So that your CFO is not telling you, no, we can't bill for this service the way that is structured. You have that flexibility to actually monetize these new services that are literally kind of like off script, you know, for a lot of operators. And so there's this whole new frontier, I think, of opportunities that can be tapped, but you need to have that full stack kind of capability. And I know that you guys are up and down the stack. So
I think it's also interesting how now operators use this opportunity to change their own business model. I think you could think of, now we have best efforts, basically it's $1 per gigabyte. Essentially that is, right? But how does it evolve? Like is that more like in the airline industry, you say there's an economy class, there's a premium class, so there's a first class. Or more dynamic models, like you do it for an event, like for like a segment, like influencers. You do that pretty more dynamic business model. So I could imagine that it's going toward that direction. We see much more kind of differentiated, segmented, and also more dynamic business models going forward.
But you know, I also see it as multimodal. Like, so you have different ways you can get to point A and B, right? So what we're looking at in the future with this 5G future, especially as you make the transition to SA, is different ways of getting to point A to point B. And everyone wants to go in different destinations. They may be like services, but the thing is you can get there different ways. And those are adjacent and net new services and that are enabled by new capabilities that are going to be part of the 5G infrastructure, right? And network. And so I think that's really the mindset shift that the industry needs to make, and do it in a material, practical way. And as these capabilities and networks become realized, right, through modernization efforts, you can head a lot of the thinking ahead just by thinking practically about end market use cases, and really getting down to the practical technical level, right? How are we changing the mobile computing or the fixed wireless computing model for a particular use case? And then I think a lot of exciting things can happen and be realized, right?
I agree with that. That's going to be interesting how this turns out, right?
Yeah.
So basically, the whole thing has to come together from everything yesterday to the programmability and to a business model, like you say. I think this is going to be an interesting journey ahead. I'm curious what we see then next year in Mobile World Congress.
I think that we're going to see an essential and urgent need to focus on moving the mall. And I think it's already starting here in this conference where there's more of a practical
how you would do this.
Yeah, how do we really get to that next step in the 5G journey, which I quite frankly think has been has lost the spotlight over the last few years. And I think the industry really needs to put that spotlight back on 5G so that we're talking about it more.
Yeah.
And we're now getting prepared for this frontier that's right in front of us. Again, there's a backlog of technology and there's a lot of opportunity behind that backlog. And so this is where the industry really needs to start thinking about how do we get to that point where we unlock and start to digest and put into the field these really great capabilities. I mean, pretty significant changes that we can anticipate, but also a lot of opportunities as well. And readiness is going to be a big thing, right? And that means you have to get up the maturity curve, up and down that stack that we were talking about.
Yeah, so. I agree. And I think the turning point is really that you have 5G SA over there.
Yeah.
You have everything, all the layers in place that we just went through. And then I hope next year we'll see like hundreds of implementations. And like,
let's keep our fingers
all the different
crossed.
chain being real.
Yeah. All right.
With that,
let's do it.
With that, great to see you.
Yeah, great having this chat with you.
Was a nice journey across the whole universe.
I know.
The whole stack.
Yeah, it's a whole stack journey. Yeah.
Then when do we do the guitar playing then on 5G?
Next week. How's that?
How's that? Okay.
All right. I'll see you on the other side of the pond.
All right. Good to see you.